solidarity to the heroic students and activists at Columbia University, at Yale, and many other universities who, as we speak, are occupying their spaces in their schools in solidarity with Palestine in the face of brutal police and state repression, with hundreds of students having been arrested so far in the past few days. And we salute you. The topic, of course, of this panel, as we well know, is international solidarity with the Palestinian cause. And I would like to speak in my capacity also as an activist in the United States for Palestine for over 2 decades. I grew up in a family that was very supportive of Palestine. My father from Iran, my mother from Greece. And so, of course, this was a very critical thing for us. We talked about it at the dinner table. I remember through my childhood onwards. First, we must acknowledge that there has been a tectonic shift in the Palestinian solidarity movement. 2 decades ago, when I was a university student, in our local chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine, the largest demonstrations for Palestine in the United States would be somewhere within the tens of thousands or maybe even low 100,000 people. Today, there are millions of people in the United States on the streets for Palestine. And I think that October 7th and its aftermath have been a real axial moment for the plight of the Palestinians in the United States. I want to speak about some key aspects of the Palestinian solidarity movement in the United States. First and foremost, students have played a central role amongst young people now. For the first time in history, the overwhelming majority of young people in the United States support Palestine and are against Israel. This is a complete change from generations before, where it's the opposite. The older generations support Israel over the Palestinians. Now it's overwhelmingly above 70, almost 80% of young people are supporting Palestine. This is enormous, and we have students organizing for Palestine in high schools, in colleges, and in universities. Even in my own high school, the students approached me and said, "Mr. Helali, will you be our advisor for our Students for Justice in Palestine?" This is unthinkable in my school, which is a very elite school, with the majority of the parents being from the high strata of the Democratic Party. And so I think that here you see some real transformations happening. Second, of course, is the boycott, divestment, sanctions movement, the BDS movement, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We have campaigns now at local, state, federal, and corporate and university levels for divestment from Israeli companies, divestment from Israeli bonds, divestment from the Israeli currency, divestment from other financial instruments, boycotts of companies that do business in Israel and the occupied territories. In my home state of Vermont, as you all might know, we helped to lead the victory on Ben & Jerry's, the ice cream maker, who eventually left the occupied territories and then was kicked out of Israel. The government went crazy with them. We lead campaigns to cut academic and scientific ties with the Israeli institutions and universities. And of course, we continue to identify, boycott, and divest from US companies that supply arms and equipment to Israel, with a particular focus on the military-industrial complex. Of course, the classic slogan these days has been about the ceasefire resolutions. We have been campaigning in our towns and cities to have ceasefire resolutions passed, with the aim of raising awareness about what is going on in Palestine. And attached to that is anti-apartheid movements and resolutions that seek to make it a broader campaign. We have occupations and nonviolent resistance, like we mentioned, on different college campuses, within corporate offices, government offices, bridges, streets, everywhere you can imagine. And of course, there are additional activism happening. Delegations, conferences, humanitarian relief, participation in the upcoming flotilla. Sorry for the translation. And of course, I think one of the key aspects of the solidarity movement in the US has been the overwhelming support by Jewish people in the United States for Palestine. the anti-Zionist Jews, many of whom I call my dearest comrades, have been at the forefront of fighting with organizations primarily like Jewish Voice for Peace. They have been at the front line. You've seen, I'm sure, many videos, occupations of the Congress, occupations in many prominent areas, including Penn Station in New York, many prominent bridges, Brooklyn Bridge. So we've seen these things, and it has been changing the narrative completely, that we are labeled anti-Semitic for supporting Palestine, but now we have hundreds of thousands of Jews saying, not in our name, and we are here for Palestine. And so it has changed much of that. We've seen coalitions being built of Muslim, Christian, Jewish, ethnic groups, liberal, progressive, anarchist, socialist, communist, anti-war, anti-imperialist. Even some conservative entities have come on to the pro-Palestine movement. However, and this is sort of my concluding remarks here, we must speak about the contradictions of the Palestinian solidarity movement in the United States. While solidarity with Palestinians has increased to a large section of the US population, that has not extended to the axis of resistance and the broader architecture of US foreign policy in West Asia. For many, Palestine's struggle is separated from the resistance organizations on the ground. So we have many comrades and friends who continue to condemn Hamas, Islamic Jihad, PFLP, DFLP for being terrorist organizations. They claim that they do not represent the Palestinian people. This extends much broader to the entire axis of resistance. We have comrades and friends who condemn Hezbollah. We have many activists who condemn the Syrian government and speak of the plight of the people in Idlib and to support the Free Syrian Army, which we, of course, at least for our perspective from my party, are completely against. We have people criticizing Ansar Allah, right, the Houthis in Yemen, because they supposedly kill homosexuals, they oppress the women, they oppress their population. And of course, the big divide today is on Iran, where we have many, even in these past few days, who do not want to take a position in support of Iran because they are chanting women like freedom, and they are saying that Iran is some oppressive theocracy that oppresses women. So of course, these contradictions, of course, have come and opened up in the movement and have created some very serious problems. And so, even more bizarre is the Palestinian solidarity activists who claim to be anti-imperialists while simultaneously supporting, arming and funding Ukraine against Russia. Here I would draw your attention to a very famous political cartoon on Chinese social media, on Weibo, which has basically the XY axis, right? And here you have the four camps. Those who support Palestine and Ukraine, including some socialists and communists, I might add, are referred to by our Chinese comrades as anti-warism camp, or as we like to say, the anarcho-NATOist camp. This is how they are. Those who support Palestine and Russia, as most of us do here, if not all of us do here, are referred to by our Chinese comrades as those who fully understand the core of international geopolitics, the true anti-imperialists. Those who support Russia and Israel are described under the axis of social Darwinism and include evangelical Christians who support both for different reasons. And lastly, those who support Ukraine and Israel, including neoconservatives and neoliberals, are the true imperialists, the dogs of the US empire, as our Chinese comrades say. Our tasks to conclude for us in the movement in the US are to continue to heighten the consciousness of the people in the United States about anti-imperialism, to continue to bring awareness about various political topics, to continue our political education, and to unify the movement. Those are our goals. That's what we continue to do. Thank you very much.